in the office at once will ever happen again. And I used to work for the city,
Mm,
and they're still staggered as well in
yeah.
all their locations. They're, they'll put people in once a week where they used to be 5 days a week.
Mm, yeah. I think that's
Yeah,
most places that we deal with too. Like even us, we're hybrid too. Everybody has like an option, and we have like, not everybody needs to be in all the time. So it's very, very
right.
it's very flexible now, which I gotta say I do like. It definitely opened up my eyes to, the resourcefulness of people and where everybody can work. It's actually kind of refreshing to
Well,
be
it's
able to have that
funny.
flexibility.
It certainly, the mindset has changed. It used to be, and now I'm probably, well, I am aging myself, but back in the day, you had to have a really good reason to get permission to work from home. And so, even though I was far more productive when I worked from home, because the social atmosphere of the work office was just, not always, a positive thing on your production.
True.
So now it's just I think the pandemic proved that you could also, that you could be productive,
Yeah.
outcomes were still achieved, and all of that. So I guess we have some things to be thankful for that.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I like it. I think,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think it's just a matter, and you know what? People can be, I think you nailed it when you said productive. I find people are more productive. You don't have a commute anymore. You can end up doing so much where you are. So,
Well, right. And I think it also ebbs and flows with the person's energy level too. If you're worried, I used to always say when I had small kids, when I was home with my kids, I was worried about work. And when I was at work, I'd be worried about my kids. So,
yeah,
it was kind of nice that, here you kind of have both worlds, and not always that regular 9 to 5, expectation of being in the office. So
true. Very true.
yeah. Yeah. So it's 6:01. So I think for the sake of our time, I'll kind of get started. And I want to thank the folks that have joined us today. And my name is Deb Clinton, and I'm the Mo Money Communication Specialist. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to this presentation today. And the next slide, oh, actually, yes. So I wanted to do a land acknowledgement as well. So I acknowledge that this session is delivered from my home in Hamilton, Ontario, on land very close to Mohawk College. So I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge that my home and the college are situated on the traditional and unceded territories of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe nations within the lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement, and is currently home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island. So next slide, please. So I also want to say that this event is being held in celebration of the National Financial Literacy Month across Canada, and that educational and financial institutions are holding events that champion financial literacy and financial resiliency for all Canadians. And so the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada has ensures federally regulated financial entities, I know that's a mouthful, comply with consumer protection measures, and promotes financial education and raises consumer awareness of their rights and responsibilities. So in consultation with Canadians, they have released a 5-year National Financial Literacy of Canada strategy called Make Changes That Count. So this strategy is a call to action to make the financial ecosystem more accessible, inclusive, and effective for all Canadians. So then specifically about Mo Money, Zamzam, if you want to just change the slide for me, please. Yeah. There we go. Thank you. So Mo Money is a student money management center focused on 2 goals. One is to help students develop critical financial skills, and the other is to provide students with resources and training to use those skills. So on campus, you can ask for one-on-one money counseling. We host events and workshops, and we also have financial resources available called like Money Matters Module, which is a free course on my Canvas that helps students navigate financial literacy. So next slide, please. So how to connect with Mo Money? Well, of course, we're on social media. And so you can follow us on Instagram or you can follow us on Facebook. Also, you know, if you visit our webpage, mohawkcollege.ca, you can book an appointment with our money counselor. You can see our events that we're hosting for the month. And, you know, if you're faculty or work in the community, you can actually request us to come out and do a workshop. So great. And now I want to pass it over to Zam to get on with our feature presentation.
Yes, hello. Can everybody see me? Well, let's see. Okay, so we already have quite a few participants here. So thank you so much for joining with us today. Different ways to get into home ownership. My name is Zam B, and I work in the Alumni Relations Office here at Mohawk College. I am so glad you're able to join us today and look forward to learning alongside with all of you. So today's webinar is about how buying a home over the years have always looked terrible and impossible when viewed through the lens of social media. But in reality, it has turned out to be the #1 investment for a majority of Canadians over the years. So we're going to learn about how home ownership is always in reach, overcoming the reasons not to take action on a financial goal, and how to get started. But before we get started, there will be a few housekeeping items that I want to mention now. So this webinar is being recorded and will be emailed to you afterward. So if you'd like to share them to your friends, please feel free to do so. And if you have any questions for our presenter, please add them in the chat box down below throughout the presentation. And there will be a time for a Q&A section at the end. And lastly, a friendly reminder to please keep your video off and your microphone muted to help create the best experience for everyone who's tuning in and watching in. Okay, so it is my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker. Brian Hogben is the guy that proves nice guys don't finish last. He's an award-winning, hardworking, and spilling over with positivity, gratitude, and authenticity. Brian Hogben is the founder of Mission 35 Mortgages. He cut his teeth at the bank, starting working as a commission-based mortgage agent, then became a team leader with a brokerage and launched Mission 35 Mortgages. He's one of the top mortgage brokerages in his first 3 years of existence, and currently has 10 locations across Southern Ontario. Then I also mentioned that he writes. Yes, he does that too. So he's the author of How to Get Mortgage-Free Really Effing Fast. It shows other people that becoming mortgage-free many years earlier than what typical Canadians think is possible. And it's just not a pipe dream, it is a reality. So long story short, Brian Hogben is a mortgage broker you told your friends about and the guy to trust with your financial needs and your financial decisions, and who will take your financial literacy to the next level. So thank you so much for being here with us today, Brian. I hand the microphone over to you now.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Sam Tambi, and thanks, Deb. And I'm so happy to be here tonight with financial literacy with Mo Money. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I love being a part of this. So what I want to talk to you guys about tonight is I'm going to give you just a little bit of my background. Zambi, you gave a lot of my background there, so that's great. I wish I had that introduction all the time. That's really nice. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story, but really what I want you guys to leave here with tonight is just the hope and the faith that you can actually purchase a house. It is possible for you to buy a house. And I would love to shift the narrative that may be going on in some of your heads about, hey, you know, home ownership's not for me. It's totally out of reach. It's way too expensive. There's a lot of negativity around getting into home ownership today because prices are expensive. So my commitment to you, and I will have failed if I haven't changed your mind by the end of this webinar, okay? So please, you know, we've got a nice intimate gathering tonight. So if there are questions, like Sam and me said, put them in the chat. So we can answer them at the end as well too. Okay. So I actually graduated from Mohawk College, and like some of you, I ended up graduating from Mohawk College, and I ended up going to university afterwards, and I graduated with quite a bit of debt. I don't know if that resonates with any of you out there, but I went to Mohawk College. After Mohawk College, I spent a year in University of Western Sydney in Australia. I took my business administration diploma from Mohawk, and I was able to upgrade it to a degree in Australia. And I also spent a heck of a lot of money while I was down there. So when I came back, I was about $40,000 in debt when I came back from university. So I hope none of you have the weight of that debt. Okay. But if you do, I just want to share with you what I was end up thinking about them, because graduating from college and university, what a lot of people end up saying is, you know, before you end up moving on, you've got to pay off your debts, right? Pay down debt. This is kind of the advice that we get sometimes is pay down your debts, pay down your debts. And I'm not telling you here not to pay down your debt, but I just want to tell you what happened for me is because after I got back from university, I moved back home. My parents took out a line of credit on their home, so I had to end up paying them back. They would be a little bit pissed off if I didn't. So I started paying them back, and I would take almost 95% of my paycheck and keep paying back my parents and paying back my parents and paying back my parents. And I'd be living on such a small amount. And then after about 3, 4, 5 months of doing this, I would get a little upset and be like, you know what? I don't want to live my life like this. I want to go spend some money. And then I'd go spend money, and I would end up going out for dinner. I would buy some clothes. I would spend frivolously. And it was kind of like this ebbing and flowing relationship that I just wasn't winning. I kind of equate it to like if you were dieting. I don't know if any of you have done this before, but you go on a diet, you eat really, really good. And then the weekend comes and you decide, you know what? I'm going to go to the Mandarin and eat everything at the buffet. Okay. And then the next day I'm going to go out for breakfast, and you get the idea. You kind of like binge. I was doing the same thing with my finance, and I had to have a good hard look at myself. And I decided, like, listen, Brian, you're probably going to have debt forever. And I know that's not something that people like to hear or say, but you're probably going to have some sort of debt. There's always going to be something that's going to come up. You know, the car is going to break down, and you're going to have to put on your credit card. You're going to need tooth repair. Maybe you're going to have to go to the dentist. You're going to not have benefits. You're going to have something that's going to cause you to go in debt sometime. So how can I get ahead with keeping debt? And that's when I decided, because I worked at a bank, and I was learning about financing, learning about mortgages. And I said, that's when I decided I got to buy a house. And what I ended up doing was, instead of paying off debt, I started making minimum payments on my debt, saved up money instead for a down payment on a house, and I bought my first house. I ended up buying a duplex where I lived in half and I rented out half. Okay. And I actually lived in the very terrible, crappy half. Okay. And I rented out the nice half of the house because and I think in today's world, you know, we want to have the best of things sometimes, but I think sometimes a little bit of sacrifice, especially when we're starting out, can go a long way. So that house that I purchased, that was my very first home. It was a duplex, living in half, renting out half, greatly subsidized my living expenses. And what ended up happening over time is that turned into what I call my Mission 35 house, because I kept that house for 10 years. And this is why I want to, you know, hope to inspire you guys or give you guys some thoughts to think about, because I kept that house for a long time. I didn't live there forever, but I bought it in 2002. So we're going back some time, but these principles still hold true. And I'll show you how afterwards. Okay. But I held on to that house. I bought a few other properties, but when I sold it on my 34th birthday, and well, just after my 34th birthday. And it was enough. The proceeds were enough to pay off the house that I live in today. So that's where the Mission 35 came from, because I was able to become mortgage free by the time I was 35 years old. And I want to share with you at the end what that did for me. And that's why I'm so passionate about sharing this with you guys, to end up purchasing a house, because it can literally change the trajectory of your life by doing something that may be a little bit outside of your comfort zone today. Okay. And that's purchasing a house. Okay. So, and when I bought, and something I'm going to share with you a couple times too, news will always appear terrible when you're looking at the financial markets. Okay. And I'll bring you back, because I, can't see your faces right now either, but bringing you back to 2002. That's when I purchased a house. And some of you may or may not know this, but the #1 headline in 2002, we just finished having September 11th, 2001. World Trade Center, terrible time, terrible things happening. There was a tremendous amount of fear in the marketplace. People fear about war, about terrorism, about other things happening in the world. And so the last thing that most people want to do is buy a house. This was a very, very bad news story at the time, but me, all I was thinking about is, can I afford the payments? Okay. And I'll fast forward as well too. In 2008 was when I bought the house that I live in today. The number one headline in 2008 was global financial crisis. Okay. This is when the financial markets in the States got turned upside down through some unprudent, some different lending practices that were happening in the mortgage market. And a good movie to watch is called The Big Short, if you want to learn more about it, if you don't know. But very, very uncertain times where banks were looking at going out of business. People were very unsure about what to do. And literally, you would see in the headlines almost on a daily basis that we're having a global financial crisis. And I arguably bought 2 houses in probably 2 of the worst times, 2 of the most fearful times, and it worked out really, really well. So that's why I want to share with you guys here as to why you want to do these things. And not only why, but how. So I'm going to go through why real estate. I'm going to go into just a little bit more detail on why real estate is probably, in my mind, the number 1 investment for you to get into. Number 2, if you have a pen, take some notes for number 2, because it's how to do it. Because I know a lot of people think it's without your reach because prices are so expensive. Interest rates are so high. We're going to have a recession. There's a lot of negativity in the news right now, and a lot of reality to it as well too, which does make it difficult. But I want to show you some ways that you can do it. Okay. Because I honestly believe that you can do it and it can change the trajectory of your life. And then lastly, what roadblocks to watch out for when you're trying to reach your financial goals, because you're going to hit a lot of different roadblocks along the way as well too. Okay. So number 1, Zamzambi mentioned it. Why real estate? Okay. It is the number 1 long-term wealth builder for Canadians. It is the number 1 savings account that Canadians have. When you end up buying a house, people typically buy a house, forget about it. It goes up, the mortgage goes down. When you end up buying a house, you typically will get a loan for it called a mortgage, and it goes down. Over time, this becomes a massive, massive savings account. Okay. So let's see here. Just look in the comments too, which is going to be real. Yeah. Okay. And we'll get to all your comments as well too, and questions at the end if I can, because I'd love to answer them as well. Okay. So when it comes down to real estate, and someone mentioned recession as well too, because I'll bring that up as well, because it is very, very important. Okay. There's 3 things that make real estate like an amazing investment, regardless of the market timing, because there's going to be peaks and valleys in markets. There's going to be ups and there's going to be downs. Okay. The number 1 thing for real estate is leverage. What leverage is when something small can lift up something really big. Okay. Real estate is the number 1 financial asset that I've found where you can get the most leverage. And typically you can get 5-to-1 leverage. Now, what that means is for every dollar that you invest or every dollar that you put into real estate, you can get almost 5 times that in borrowing. Okay. So why is that important when it comes down to leverage? So say, for example, just for simple math, I won't get too nerdy with numbers here, but if you were to put $1,000 or let's say $100 into a bank account that paid you 5%, the $100 at 5% will give you $5, right? You can only make money based on that amount. Okay. So the next part is that if you end up having a house, your down payment could be 20%. So if you end up having, let's just say, a house for $100,000 and you put down 20,000, you're investing 20 and the 100 can go up. Okay. So that's where that leverage ends up coming in for real estate investment. The second part is easy stuff too. It's called principal pay down. When you end up getting a mortgage, you buy a house, the mortgage goes down over time. It's kind of like, and I use this example, I don't even need a graph for it, because when you pay rent, how much goes into your savings account? Nothing. Nothing goes into your savings account. When you end up paying money into a mortgage, a portion of that payment goes towards paying back the debt. So every single month, regardless of what you buy the house for, and regardless of the interest rate, whether the interest rate's really high or really low, a portion of that payment that you're putting towards the house is going into what I call your home savings account. It's paying down the loan. That's building up your wealth or your equity. And your wealth and equity, whenever you hear these terms, that's the difference between the value of the house and the balance on the mortgage. Okay. That is one of the easiest ways, because you need a place to live, that you can end up building wealth with. And the third one, which I love, and I love seeing young people especially get very, very resourceful with this, is what a lot of other financial instruments can't give you, is cash flow. Okay. What cash flow is it pays you. So cash flow, number one, you can rent out a room in the house to help subsidize the mortgage payment. You could rent out a parking space to subsidize the mortgage payment. I've seen people rent out a garage to subsidize the mortgage payment. I've even seen people go back home to their parents' place and Airbnb their unit for the weekend to help pay for the mortgage payment, right? There are so many resourceful ways that are available today to help you pay for the mortgage that weren't available before. So, and this is something that wasn't around as plentiful when I was doing this. And I want to give you an example. I wrote down an example here because, and it's a real example, and it was someone who ended up buying, who graduated from Mohawk College, one of our clients. They ended up buying a house for $700,000. Okay. Seems like quite a bit of money, doesn't it? So the down payment that they required was $70,000. Okay. I know I had almost that in debt when I graduated. Okay. So having $70,000 was not easy, but fortunately enough, they had family that was able to gift them the money. And that's allowed. You're allowed to get a gift from mom, dad, sister, brother, aunt, or uncle to get into a house. Now, the mortgage payment that they had to pay on the house was approximately $4,000 a month. Okay. They ended up living, and this was a house near Mohawk College. Okay. They ended up living in the basement, which had its own separate kitchen, bathroom, living room. Some of you have probably seen houses like this. We call it an in-law suite. And then they rented out the upstairs, the nicer unit, because this person understood that, hey, listen, I'm single right now. I don't need all this space right now. So what I'm going to end up doing is take the smaller unit. I'll rent out the bigger unit. And that bigger unit now, they were able to rent it out for $3,000 a month. Okay. So now the mortgage payment's $4,000. They were able to rent it out for $3,000. So it's hard to find a place in Hamilton, for those of you that are local right here, for $1,000 a month that you own, right? Now, what they did as well too, their parents lived in Sarnia. So they would end up going back home every other weekend, and they would Airbnb their unit every other weekend for almost $400 for the weekend. Fully furnished unit, $400. So now that's $800 that was coming in. So this person was able to house hack and afford where they're living for $200 a month for their mortgage payment. Now, they did have to pay insurance and a few other things as well too, but it was far cheaper than rent, and they were just extremely resourceful. And this is just one. I'm going to give you guys some other ideas how to do it as well too, but this is just one way of house hacking a place to help subsidize the income. Okay, because if you take it all on yourself, it can be extremely overwhelming, especially when you graduate. You might not be making $250,000 a year when you graduate, like we all think we're going to, right? I sure as hell didn't. I wish I was going to, but I didn't. So that's one way to do it. So now, how you end up doing it, okay? So the three things in real estate: leverage, principal pay down, and cash flow. How to do it. I'm going to give you guys, this is, if you get nothing else out of today, this is what I want to leave you guys with, how to do it, okay? There's the conventional way, there is co-signers, there's more expensive lenders, and then there's the unconventional ways, which I'm sure you guys want to hear about too. So I just want to give you the meat and potatoes of the conventional way. These are the banks. When you end up going to a bank and you ask for a loan, they're going to look at three things, okay? They're going to look at your credit. Okay, so your credit score. Typically, a bank is going to want to see that you have credit that's above a 680 Beacon score. Okay, basically what that means is every time you got a credit card, you made all your payments as agreed. And something around your credit, please know this, okay? It is far better to set up all your credit cards on an automatic minimum monthly payment than it is to be late and pay it all down. And I've seen people make this mistake before where they say, okay, I'm 2 or 3 days late making my credit card payment, but I'm going to make a big payment on it and pay it all down. That makes your credit worse. If your minimum payment's $50 and you have it set to pay $50 every single month and you decide to pay more later, your credit will be way better. So just, if you haven't done that, do yourself a favor, make sure that all your credit cards are on that auto payment to keep your credit really, really clean. That's what the banks want to see. Now, the second part is after credit, they want to see income. The banks, those pesky banks, they're very, very picky, okay? So they want to see income and it's verifiable. And what that means is they want to see, listen, are you at a job? if you're self-employed, if you have a side hustle, depending on what you're doing, the banks want to see 2 years of consistency. So again, I'm starting with the conventional way. It's the hardest one to qualify, but typically they have the cheapest rates. So that's why you always want to start there. If they say no, don't worry about it. You ask somebody else, okay? But so they want to see verifiable income. The other thing too that I see people get discouraged on, you don't necessarily have to work somewhere for 2 years to get mortgage or to get credit. Some people say you have to be there for 2 years. If you're working somewhere, if you got a job at Mohawk College, you got a job somewhere else, and you're past probation and you're full-time, that's totally good. They just want to see that you're full-time past probation. Don't necessarily have to have 2 years. The last one for the banks too is that they want to end up seeing that you have a down payment. The minimum down payment on a house today for a bank is 5%. If it's under 500,000. Oh, someone just ended up saying, oh, Zam, they don't accept part-time. They do accept part-time. Thanks for asking that. But they like to see a 2-year history of part-time income, because part-time income is a little bit more inconsistent the way that the banks look at it. So they will accept it. They want to see more history for it. So, and then what I'll do is I'm going to move down the funnel to the next set of lenders because they have a little bit looser requirements. The banks, the down payment, they want to see a minimum of 5% down under 500,000. If it's over 500,000 and under $1 million, they want to see closer to 7% down. Okay. So can everybody get qualified in a bank? No. Do you know what? Like it is difficult to do. What happens next is we will typically ask for a cosigner. Okay. Do you have mom, dad, sister, brother, rich Uncle Joe, Auntie Betty? Do you have somebody there that can end up helping out to go on the mortgage with you? Because that will help out. Because let's say, for example, your job, you started your own business, you graduated from Mohawk, and you're killing it, but you don't have the 2-year history yet. Someone who co-signs, who's been around for maybe a bit longer, a little bit more tenure, they can end up helping that application move through. Another thing that we see a lot of too is we see somebody co-sign, like mom, dad, sister, brother, in addition to help with the down payment as well too. So you can have them help from both avenues, right? I've got a little girl that's 6 years old, my daughter. Trust me, if she ever asked me to co-sign, I would say, heck yeah. So don't be afraid to ask. I'm going to talk about that in the unconventional way, because sometimes, I tell people, don't take no for an answer until you give someone the opportunity to say yes. Okay. Sometimes you end up thinking somebody's going to say no before you even ask. Okay. So please do not do that when you're looking for financing. Okay. So listen, so bank has said no. Great. Cosigner, not going to work out. Great. Okay. Down payment, not going to work out either. We're going to get into unconventional ways now. So now there's private lending. Okay. And there's what we call alternative lending. The way that those end up working is they end up saying, listen, if you have bad credit, I'm not too concerned about it. If you have bad credit, if you have poor income, or I can't verify your income, or you started a business, I'm okay with that too. But what I do want to see is I do 100% need to see equity. And what that is a down payment on the property. So that is where we'll get into the last one, which is joint ventures. And I think this is happening more and more with people getting into the housing market today. And I think it's gotten a bad rap sometimes, but I really encourage people to do it. What a joint venture is, it's just a partnership. It's just like me saying, hey, me and Deb are going to buy a house together. We're going to buy a house together. We're going to buy it 50-50. That $700,000 house. Listen, I can get, 30 grand from my parents. She can get 30 grand from her parents. We're both going to live in there together. We're going to live in the upstairs unit, and then we're going to rent out the basement together. We're 50-50. We're both doing it together. There's nothing wrong with bringing a partner to the table that has the same needs and wants that you do. And I encourage you guys to do this. I feel that home ownership has been something that people feel that they need to do all on their own. And maybe you do when you have a family, when you're married, you've got kids, you do things like that. But you can even do this with another family as well too. Okay. There's lots of different partnership agreements. So the most traditional one is I'm 50-50. I'm buying it with my friend, my buddy, my pal, whoever, and we're going to buy it together. Guess what? We've seen people buy houses together and not even live there. Crazy. You could do that. You could stay where you are, come together, purchase that investment together, rent it out together, manage it together. You could do it with 4 people. Okay. You could take me and 4 we could all together on this call put a plan together to buy a house together. And something I remind people of all the time, I would way rather have 10% of something than 100% of nothing. And this is tried and true with home ownership, okay? Because over the past, I'm a nerd when it comes to this stuff, okay? You should see, okay? But anyways, I'll give you some stats. When you go, I go back to 1940, and you look at real estate prices from 1940 to 2020, that's the past 80 years. In the past 80 years, every 10 years, real estate prices have doubled. From 40 to 50, 50 to 60, 60s to 70s, every 10 years, your investment doubled. Except for 1990 to 2000, they went in and came out at the same price, okay? So over the past 80 years, real estate prices have doubled every 10 years, 90% of the time. That's a lot of money, okay? That is a lot of money. When you look at the average income today with people graduating, you're making 50, 60, 70, $80,000 a year. I believe the average household income today, household, 2 people is under $100,000. If you can double your investment in real estate over 10 years, I would happily take a quarter of that. I would happily take 10% of that as a passive investment. Passive means I'm not showing up 40 hours a week working for it. Okay, so I'll get off my soapbox on that topic, but I just want to encourage you guys because if you can't do it on your own, it's okay to do it with somebody else. So the other part about that too is with the unconventional way is when you have joint venture partners, if you have, so let's say, Brian, I got no money, I got no job, I got no, sorry, it's starting to sound like a country song. Okay, but anyways, I got nothing. Okay, I got nothing, but you know what? I've got time and I've got ambition and I've got a willingness to do this. You'd be surprised how many people there are, and we call this operating partners and money partners, okay? And you could still have a 50-50 split on this, okay? You can negotiate this. There's no rules per se on it, but let's say me and Deb are buying a house together and I say, Deb, I got no money. I got nothing to bring to the table except my knowledge, my education. I listened to this guy named Brian from Mo Money, and I've learned from him. And what I can do for you is I can bring you an opportunity. Okay. I'm going to research opportunities. I'm going to call real estate agents. I'm going to do everything I can. It's going to be my extracurricular course at Mohawk. Okay. It's Brian learning about real estate. And I'm going to bring Deb an opportunity because Deb is just, she drives a G-Wagon and she's got a money gun. Okay. And she just like spills out money, but she has no time. And there are a lot of people in this world right now that have a plenty amount of resources that actually would love to invest in real estate, but are scared shitless to do so. They're terrified to do it because I don't want to, like, if I have 3 kids or 4 kids and I've worked really hard for my money, I don't want someone calling me at 2 a.m. saying the plumbing's broken. I don't want someone calling me, saying I shoveled the snow. These are problems that people say about properties, especially if they're renting them out. So what I could do with Deb and say, hey, Deb, I'll tell you what, I found this house near Mohawk College. Okay. I'm going to manage it. Even better yet, I'm going to live there. I'm going to pay a cheaper rent. I'm going to rent out the top. All the phone calls will go to me. You won't have to worry about anything here. But what I need you to do is I need you to help with the financing to end up taking care of things. We'll be 50-50 partners. I'm the owner. I'm the manager of this project. You are the bank. You're going to take care of it. Now you're into it with nothing except your ambition and your time. Now, is this easy? I would wager it is easy. It's just unconventional because all you got to do is once you plant the seed in your head, I call it like your reticular activating system. If you ever heard this before, it's like if you'd say, I want to drive a Range Rover, then all of a sudden you start seeing Range Rovers around, right? Or I love the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now you start seeing Maple Leaf jerseys, right? When you start to say, I'm looking for a money partner, your conversations with people and your reticular activating system will help you start looking for this. Because now you're going to go over to your friend's house. I'm going to go to Deb's house and talk to her parents or her mom or sister, brother. And these manifestation, yes, that's exactly the word. I very, very much believe in that because you will find what you're looking for. I believe that to be true in probably most areas of life. Okay. So if you want to find a money partner, you can find one. If you want to be an operating partner, you can find one. You may not be 50-50. You might be 75-25. Deb might end up saying, if she's the money partner, Brian, you can have 25%. I'm going to take 75%. Great. I would rather have 25% of something than 100% of nothing. So these are the types of opportunities that we see more and more and more today of ways to get into home ownership. Okay, it's unconventional, but you need to do the work for it. And I'll tell you something, I'm a big believer because, you know, being able to pay off my mortgage by the time I was 35, a lot of the narration, joint venture. Sorry, I'm just trying to read here from Kim here. With joint ventures, what percentage fails from negligence? What does the legal aspects look like? That's a great question. I would take, and if I'm wrong on this, you can put it in the comments again. I look at a joint venture agreement as a marriage. Okay. And I know you never want to start a marriage with the prenuptial agreement or the divorce papers, but I think you should. And because the unfortunate part is, you know, I'm not talking about marriage counseling here. This is Mo Money, but 50% of marriages end in divorce. Partnerships end too. And when you go into a joint venture agreement, it's very, very good to have clearly defined expectations and exits. And you write it down and you end up saying, hey, listen, Brian, Deb, our plan is we're going to keep the house after 5 years. If the house is worth X, we will sell it. We both agree to sell it. If the house is worth Y, hasn't hit where we want it to be, we will keep it for another 5 years. If one of us decides after 5 years we have to sell it, we sell it. And you end up setting up clearly defined expectations. The ones, that end up in lawsuits, legalities, are the ones that said, hey, Deb, let's buy a house. I like you, you like me. Let's have a handshake, not talk about anything that could go wrong and hope everything works out. Those are typically the ones that end in the problems, because I think all disappointment comes from unmet expectations. So if you don't set up expectations, you're going to have problems later. So I think with the joint venture agreement, with a marriage, you're marrying somebody's finances in there. Make sure you set up, hey, this is allowed, this isn't allowed, this is cheating, this is not cheating. Okay, you end up having those clearly defined conversations on it. So I hope that answers that question there. So I think if you can't get into the housing market with the bank, cool. Step one, no problem. Then I would end up saying, go to mom, dad, sister, brother, aunt, uncle. Pitch them. I end up pitching my dad, and when I end up buying my second rental property, because now I own a couple of apartment buildings. I own mixed use buildings. I own a lot of offices and a lot of real estate, but I ended up pitching my dad, and I ended up saying, Dad, can I borrow money to buy another property? And he's like, my dad said to me, he's like, why do you want to buy another property? He said, you can only live in one at a time. I said, Dad, I want to rent it out, right? I want to invest in it. So he didn't quite understand where I was coming from. But I said, listen, my dad liked Canada savings bonds. For those of you that know what those are, they're like supposed to be guaranteed investments. They pay very, very little interest. My dad would invest in these and they would pay him 3%. I say, Dad, I'll pay you 5%. And he was like, woohoo, perfect. So I'm just saying, you can go to your parents with this if they're around, if you have an aunt, uncle, and if that doesn't work, you can end up going to friends, family, and put a business plan together, put a proposal together. It is not as hard as you think, and people love to invest with hungry people. I've seen it happen all the time. And I think that's a great way for you guys to get into this home ownership. So a couple roadblocks that I've seen along the way, okay? Filter the news you get in, okay? Like I love social media and I hate it, okay? And it just the fact of the matter is that bad news is an echo chamber that just feeds into your algorithm right now. So you just got to really filter it out. And I equate it to just be careful who you're getting your advice from. You know, everybody in this day and age, you know, can be an influencer and advise you on everything, because everybody can know everything and you can watch everything from everybody, right? If I want to get into shape, I want my personal trainer to have a 6-pack, okay? And not a 6-pack of beer, 6-pack of donuts. I want him to have abs, or her to have abs, right? Because I want to look like and be like that. If someone's teaching you about finances and teaching you about the economy, just pull back the curtain and see who's teaching it. Do they really have what you want to have, okay? Are they really qualified, okay? So make sure that you're filtering through the news. And also too, I would say every single year, and again, I've nerded out on this. I've written books about this. I got another book that I'm working on now about it too. Every single year, you will be able to find bad news about the real estate market. I guarantee it. Every single year, you'll hear words like recession, bubble, overpriced. Like I said before, global financial crisis. Because if it bleeds, it reads. We, as human beings, unfortunately, have a negativity bias. We will gravitate towards the negative. It's just how we're wired for whatever reason. So when you end up filtering through the news, you will see bad news about the real estate market, which will give you that propensity to want to wait. And when I look at things right now, our real estate market, if you look at headlines, I look at this stuff every day. Our real estate market since January has dropped 20% in Hamilton, 20%. Rates have gone up. A lot of people are saying the sky is falling. The sky is falling. Listen, things never grow, like the real estate market or financial markets never grow to reach the sun, and they never fall and hit the floor. They always ebb and flow in the middle. And the problem is that we always want to wait till the bottom. We're probably at the bottom right now. And if we're not, and if it goes down another 5% or 10%, it's my next point here is like, have a long-term view, okay? Because have a really long-term view with what you're looking at, because if you're looking like this, one of the worst news articles I read the other day was Canadians are hesitant to purchase a home today because they feel like it's going to be worth less tomorrow. I get it. I don't want to buy something and lose money tomorrow, but guess what? I guarantee anything that you bought today is worth less now. Anything that you bought a week ago is worth less now. And you are not going to buy a house today, the biggest investment that typically most people make in their entire life, and sell it next month. You're going to keep it for a year. Gosh, I hope a year. You're going to keep it for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. The longer term that you can get your head around to make decisions for, the better off you are in all areas of your life. All areas. Like if I eat cheeseburgers and fries and beer every day, what's going to happen to me 10 years from now? It ain't going to be pretty, right? Brian's not going to look good. Okay. Brian's going to be really not good. Okay. And this is where it comes down to the market as well too. But if I make decisions on my health today, they're going to have a long-term payoff. Can I have a cheeseburger and fries and beers on the weekend a couple times? Yeah, of course I can. Just like in the real estate market, it's going to have some shitty times in it. Okay. But over the long term, it's proven to be one of the best investments that you could have. Okay. So number one, filter out the news, like literally filter out the news and ask yourself good questions. I find the questions that we ask ourselves, whatever you ask yourself, you'll find. Okay. So if you ask yourself, should I buy a house right now or not? You'll probably find. So ask yourself, can I afford the payments? How can I afford the payments? Right. And I know for me, like I recently lost about 40 pounds over the past year and a half, 2 years, because I got really into health. And instead of asking myself, how can I lose weight? Or instead of myself, why do I eat so much? Or like just dumb questions. I started asking myself the question, how can I enjoy getting fit? And then it shifted my mindset. How can I enjoy it? Oh, wow, well, that's fun. Well, you can do this, you can do that, and then I found a trainer. I started doing mixed martial arts, and it was like super fun to learn something new. And I got to lose weight doing it and have tons of energy. So you could say, how can I have fun trying to buy a house right now? How could I make money trying to find a house right now, instead of asking yourself poor questions? And so filter out the news, have that long-term view. Another mistake or a roadblock I see people coming into is when they're going to buy a house, they think that they're tied down. Okay. They think, oh man, if I'm going to buy a house, like that means I got to stay in Hamilton forever, or St. Catharines or wherever I am, because I'm setting down roots there. No, totally not true. Absolutely not. In this day and age, where we are and how we are, you buy a house right now, no matter how you get it. If you're going to move, I thought to myself, I was like, what if I want to go to Toronto? What if I want to move to New York? What if I want to move all these different places? I don't want to have a house to keep me somewhere. Guess what? Rent it out. Keep it, rent it out. It is way harder to attain a house today than it is to retain a house. So once you get one, you just keep it. And you know what? You want to move your life to Kelowna, you want to move your life to BC, you want to move your life somewhere else? Great, move it, but keep that house. And guess what? Maybe pay someone a little bit of a premium to manage it, right? I have a house. We recently purchased a house in Florida. It is so easy to manage there via Facebook groups. We reach out to the local Facebook community. Guess what? You find a cleaner, you find a property manager, you find anybody you possibly need to take care of that. Do you have to pay for it? Sure. But guess what? It's easier to keep it instead of selling it. So don't think that you buying a house is going to tie you down. Okay. It's not. It's actually going to give you options. Cool. And then the other one too is the last one is it's just do it now. I can't say this part, and I always feel like I'm sound like a cheesy car salesman when I say this kind of stuff, but I really mean it from the bottom of my heart when I say do it now, because I've seen so many people, and I've had talks like this for years. I've been in mortgages, you know, I'm in my 40s now, and I've done this since I've been in my 20s, and I've seen people wait, and I've seen people wait, and I've seen people wait. And you can imagine the regret that I see in people's eyes after waiting for 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, right? Do it now. Find a way to do it now. Make this one of the most urgent things, because what ends up happening when you do this, when you actually say, hey, this is possible. Brian said it's possible, so I believe it's possible. I'm going to find a way to do it. This might be 90 days out of your life. You know what? If you get approved with a bank, great. If you don't, and you find a joint venture partner like we talked about, great. The 90 days in your life right now to go find a house, get outside your comfort zone, find these house hacks and do something. Yeah, it's not easy. It would be difficult. But what would end up happening is it could change the trajectory of your entire life. Okay. And I want to leave you guys just with a story before we get into questions as to how it sort of changed my life with things, because I ended up buying real estate since my early 20s. And then in 2016 was the worst year of my life. Worst year of my life. Okay. And the best year of my life. In 2016, was the year that I was going to launch my mortgage brokerage. It was a dream to always up Mission 35 mortgages. And my wife was pregnant with our daughter, Lila. And it was June of 2016. My dad had passed away 2 years prior, but June of 2016, my mom went into the hospital. She had heart complications. She ended up going to the hospital, and she ended up dying 2 weeks later, going into the hospital. Lost both my parents. And then a month later, my daughter was born, my beautiful daughter. And for those of you who have kids or no kids, like when your life gets upside down when you have a little newborn, right? So I had to clean out my parents' house because now, you know, they were both gone. Just had my daughter, very, very tired. I ended up still having this launch date for Mission 35 Mortgages to launch this new business. And I had purchased a new building, extended myself because now my business was going to grow. So I needed more real estate. I spent literally hundreds of thousands of dollars to do this. And I ended up I had an existing team of mortgage agents that worked for another company. I had a team of people that I thought were going to work with me. And I thought that they really believed in all the things that I did. And then, so now I had lost my parents, just had my daughter. I'm very sleepless. I'm very leveraged at this point as well too. And I tell all these people that were my friends and coworkers at the time with another company, I said, hey, we're going to go open up Mission 35 Mortgages together. It's going to be amazing. We're going to help people with financial literacy. And so excited. We're going to do the right things for people. And has anybody here ever seen the movie Jerry Maguire before? It's a bit of an old movie. No? There's actually, you could Google Jerry Maguire moments. Okay. And I'll encourage you to do that afterwards. But after I did that, everybody in my organization left. They all looked at me and said, Brian, you're nuts. You're crazy. I think your idea is pretty stupid. And we're not going to work with you anymore. So in a matter of about 4 or 5 months, both my parents are gone, just had a newborn, leveraged up to end up buying real estate and property. And now my entire team left. You know what I mean? And it was probably one of those moments where I said to myself, can I just tell everybody, just kidding? Can I just go back in time here? Is there something I can do here to change things? And what really pushed me forward, and I'm so glad I did, because, you know, my life is so fulfilled right now, is because I had planned for that moment. I had manifested that moment because I had purchased a tremendous amount of real estate to end up saying, listen, if everything goes wrong in your life, Brian, you can have the courage to follow through, knowing that things aren't going to work out maybe as planned. And the reason being is because if things didn't work out, I could sell a house. And it's because I made financial decisions younger in life. It gave me the financial security to end up making decisions that now I am super fulfilled, and I love being able to share this stuff with you guys. And that's why when I say, you know, be urgent and do something now, you'll be outside of your comfort zone for 3 months, and you might think it's really hard or impossible, but there's never a lack of resources in my opinion, there's only a lack of resourcefulness. And if you guys get really, really resourceful, you can find a way to end up doing this. And then your life, the trajectory, what you could able to accomplish to pursue your dreams and goals. I know a lot of people talk about that. I'm a big believer that if you have a financial security net, it's a lot easier to achieve your goals and dreams. So I'll leave you guys with that. And my last favorite quote is, Nike didn't sell a whole bunch of shoes saying, just think about it. Their slogans, just do it, right? So thanks, guys. If you have other questions too, I'm happy to answer some questions and, anything that you guys have that would be valuable for you as well too.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Brian. That was such an amazing story that you just gave out to us. And it was really nice experience. So many tips. I learned quite a bit, like a lot, I would say not even quite a bit. So like things like conventional, ways of, buying a house, unconventional, like new terms that I learned. There's also a quote that I wrote down as we were talking. It says, don't take no and give up in finances. There's always someone who's willing to say yes, like keep trying. So that's what I definitely learned. So thank you so much for that. And at this time, we will turn it over to questions. If anyone has any questions, I see some of them that were already up in the chat. So,
I think all the questions in the chat have basically been answered. I didn't know, how do you spell McGuire? Is it with a G?
Yeah, it's Jerry.
Yeah, so.
I think it's MG. Yeah, MCG. It's with Tom Cruise. If you Google Tom Cruise. Yeah.
Oh, Tom Cruise movie. Okay.
Yeah, that's Tom Cruise, Cuba Gooding Jr. It's a pretty.
Isn't that Show Me the Money?
Yes.
There you go. There you go.
Cool. And Remy, did you have a question there? Is it Remy?
Yeah, it is Remy.
Awesome.
Thank you. So I know you mentioned that the minimum down payment for under 500,000 is 5%, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would be so so I'm a student still. So if I saved up that 5%, but I don't have a stable past history of career, if I get a parent as a cosigner, would that, like, obviously you're not the bank, but like, would you say that would be like enough to get that loan?
It could be. It could be, right? Like, because what it does is it depends on, so we would take your situation, right? And then add on mom and dad's situation, right? Or parent situation. So, and what that looks like is, it depends if mom and dad already have a mortgage or car loans or debt, or if mom and dad don't have a car loan, debts or mortgage. And it depends, are they working? What's their income? Or are they on pension, right? So it kind of like you put all that into the cookie jar, do you know what I mean? And mix it up to see. So, but your mind is right in that, if you end up having that. And what we've also seen too is if you get mom and dad on board, let's say, for example, right? And if they're willing to co-sign, a lot of times, so we start to brainstorm with them, and then mom and dad, if they own a home right now, a lot of them have a tremendous amount of equity. And what that means is, like, so if they bought a house 10, 15, 20 years ago, chances are they bought it for a lot less than what it's worth right now. Mm-hmm. And what we've done is we've been able to say, hey, listen, you know what? 5% isn't going to get Remy where she wants to go. But you know what will? It sounds crazy, but maybe if you take out $50,000 or $80,000 out of your house, and this is what my parents actually did for me. They took money off of their house to help me get started, and I was paying it back for them. Do you know what I mean? So
they provided you with more money to get like a higher percentage of the loan. So they gave you more money. So instead of 5%, it was actually maybe like closer to 8 or something.
Yes. Well, so, and then again, it depends on how you're going to finance it. The biggest difference in financing comes from when you go 5, 10, or 15%, there's a certain set of rules that banks have. As soon as you put down 20%, it is a lot of money. But financing rules change considerably. So that's where if we bring in mom, dad, aunt, uncle, someone who maybe already owns a house, mm-hmm. They could be, like I said, maybe they don't want to give it to you. Maybe they do want to give it to you. Maybe they want to do it out of the kindness in their heart, but maybe you end up putting that business proposition to them and say, hey, listen, why don't you buy it with me? Right? I'll manage it. I'll live there. I'll own it. And then after 5 years, we'll split the profit.
Okay. And then just one quick other question.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
If I'm a first-time home buyer, I get a rebate, right? Like, is it like no land transfer tax? Like, I don't understand. Is it the land transfer tax or is it like a rebate?
Yeah, good question. It's so when you're a first-time home buyer, you don't have to pay land transfer tax up to a certain amount. So you don't, it's not a rebate, you just don't pay it. So you save quite a bit of money there.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then also too, another fun hack too, is you get to put money into a retirement savings plan and take it out tax-free. So there can be some tax advantages there, but that might be for another Mo Money seminar. So okay. On RSPs.
Yeah. So are there
Thanks, Remy.
any other questions? Because I have a question, but I thought I'd let anybody else go first before my question.
I think there's a question at the very beginning.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if Ryan answered. So it's from Niharika. It says currently the theme topic in financial market is upcoming recession, which is
Mhm.
going to be really bad. UK announces they're already in recession. What is your take on it?
Yeah, I think, you know what, the definition of a recession is 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth, right? So putting that into perspective, I guess it depends on what your goal is in a recession or during a recession, right? So a lot of people see a recession as an opportunity. You know, recessions can be bad for certain people because you can lose jobs and there's unemployment and things like that, which can be very hard on people, right? However, the flip side of that is, you know, typically what we see in our markets is, do I think Canada will see a recession? Absolutely. I do think we'll see a recession, especially coming from where we came from. But is that, to me, that's what the government is intending and pushing for by raising interest rates so quickly. Over the past 7 months, we've seen interest rates go up astronomically. And that's how the Bank of Canada combats, I don't want to turn this into an economics thing, but just to go into it a bit, that's how they'll combat inflation. If you make things more expensive, people spend less money, right? So what the government has done is made things a lot more expensive. And now the inflation is starting to cool. What that will create is some job losses. It'll create some businesses not hiring as many people, maybe laying off some people. And again, you've heard, and I think you guys get an understanding from my mindset on it. You guys are sitting here trying to learn more money. You guys are resourceful, right? If there is even though there's maybe layoffs in a recession, there's no shortage of work opportunities right now. There's no shortage of side hustles, right? There's Uber, there's Amazon, there's so many different things that you can do to end up making money right now. So in my mind, a recession can be a challenge for somebody that's not willing to put in the work. I hate to say it like that, but I believe it to be true. And I also think if you have opportunity right now, I think recession, things get cheaper in a recession. Housing prices get cheaper. So if Remy's going to talk to someone to buy a house right now, I think that's a great opportunity to do it. So in a recession, it can be a very, very beneficial time. And I don't know if you guys know Warren Buffett. He's, you know, just a rich old guy who talks about money all the time. But one of his favorite quotes is, be greedy when people are fearful and be fearful when people are greedy. And the idea around that is, when people are fearful, I'm not doing anything right now. And when there's talk of recession, I'm not doing anything right now. And opportunity in anything in life is not arriving somewhere and seeing everybody there. Now, you don't, like, an opportunity is not like, oh my gosh, everybody's here, everybody's doing what I'm doing, this is a great opportunity. No, typically opportunities are arriving somewhere and doing what everybody else isn't. So that's my take on where we're at right now. I hope that, you know, shed some light on it.
So there is a comment in the chat about recession, that it brings a lot of opportunities, of course. But then there was also, so clearly, you know, people that are well positioned to take advantage of a recession, you know, do well if they're willing to do that. But how can students prepare for recession? You know, whether you're still continuing your education or you're not in the market?
It's a good question. Well, I would. So if you're a student right now, I would like to prepare for. So I wouldn't make any big ticket purchases that are not a cash flowing asset. Okay. So what I mean by that is, don't buy a car right now. Right. If you can get away with putting off buying a car or buying a major big ticket item right now, put it off, because likely in a recession, a lot of those big ticket items will get cheaper. Right. But when it comes down to, preparing for it. Other than that, I wouldn't worry about it. And that may sound naive, or may sound that, but like when it comes down to recession, listen, you're in the prime of your life right now. You're graduating from school. You're excited. I think that whenever you learn something new, you're excited about it. You're entering into the market. Your opportunities are plentiful, right? You're armed with education and you're armed with opportunity right now. Will there be some less opportunity? Possibly. Right. But I wouldn't take that as something that you can't still pursue the financial goals.
Right. We talk a lot about good debt and bad debt. And
Um,
good debt is investing in yourself, right? So, student loans and going back to school, those kinds of costs, they're investments in yourself. That's a good investment. That's good debt. Right. Credit card debt and car debt, those are kind of things where you're just going to lose money.
Deb, bless your heart. I totally agree. It is like, no, you know what? Like we talk about good debt and bad debt, as being a tax deductible, non-tax deductible. But I would say that the best thing that you can do, is learning. You invest in yourself. No one can take away from it. The dividends that pays, the interest that pays is huge. And I saw someone here said to savings and building emergency funds, but paying your tuition fees alongside, it gets a bit challenging then. Yeah, for sure. You know what? I don't want to discount it, right? I think it is hard. It totally is hard. But I think, you know what? I think putting those things, it is hard to do. I would end up saying, and that's maybe again, some sort of my mindset on the emergency fund. I do think emergency funds are important. However, I have seen and I have had people use credit as an emergency fund. Only because, and I'll just take this as, if you had an opportunity to get into a real estate investment with, say, Zamzambi and Deb and me and Remy or something like that, and it depleted your emergency fund, I'm going on a limb and I'd say I would do it and then build it up again, because that emergency fund, emergencies will come up all the time. Right. And it's a very tough one for me. And then if you can get a line of credit to subsidize that, to bridge that gap, if you have an opportunity to do it, I would do it, only because I think it's about getting comfortable with debt and not letting it paralyze you a bit too. Like, not that I want to say that you should have debt. I don't want to get into the grain here, but I think being comfortable with it, and going back to the beginning, because I couldn't get ahead if I decided to pay down all my debts. I just couldn't. It just wasn't going to happen. I had to think, how can I maintain my debt and still grow my asset base at the same time?
Yeah, question. All right. So, well, it's near the end of the hour. So, but we still have one last question. If you want to take that up, Brian, and then we can wrap it up after that.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
Is this a good time to sell the car that I bought last year? You know what? I would. Again, like I'm a car guy, and I'll just share this quickly. Like, I would say 100% sell the car and buy the house if you can, right? But because I love cars, trust me. I know where
Car guy.
Hey, if that car could make you some income, maybe you need the car, right?
Yeah, and you know what? And there is a great site called Turo. If anybody's heard of Turo, if you have a nice car, you can Airbnb your car. Turo.
Real?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Brilliant. Like, you could rent out your car for $100 a day on Turo, Turo. I'm not endorsing it. I don't know any liability about it. Okay. But you're right. If you can generate income from it, you got it. But if not, and you can put that money to better use somewhere else, do it. And just make sure. I remember having the most terrible car for so many years, and I love cars. I have a nice car today, but I had a terrible one forever. And I'll tell you, nothing felt better pulling up to I used to have a car, and I'd pull up to a really nice car, and I'd be so proud because mine didn't have any payments and I was paid for. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's just like, you could ding this thing. I don't care. It is paid for. It doesn't owe me anything, versus the person in the really, really nice car that had payments. That actually made me feel very fulfilled knowing that it was paid for. So
yeah, there you go.
Yeah. I guess financially wise on how you spend your things. So, you can save it up and purchase different ones. All right. So I want to thank you again, Brian, for your lovely presentation here this evening. We
Thank you.
really appreciate you taking your time out here and, sharing your expertise and your insights and your knowledge. So I know I personally learned a lot. So thank you. And
Yeah,
thank you, Deborah,
Yeah, thank you.
for hosting it with me. Thank you so much. And to everyone else, please stay connected with alumni by visiting our website. It's mohawkcollege.ca/alumni, or follow us on social media, which is at Mohawk Alumni. And thank you again for everyone joining us this evening and for staying connected with Mohawk. I hope you enjoy the rest of the evening.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks
bye now
very
for
much,
now,
guys.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Appreciate it, Brian.
Thank them. Okay. Take care, everybody.
Hello. Can I watch this session?